today it's my real pleasure. It's an honor actually to welcome a phenomenal musician. He's somebody that I've known about for many years since I was a student in Buenos Aires. He's also originally from Argentina. Wonderful cellist, wonderful artist, Eduardo Vassallo. Thank you very much for joining me today.
It's a great pleasure, and it's a great pleasure to see you, Christian. I heard a lot about you as well. We never had the chance to meet in person, but we will. I know we will.
I know we will. Thank you. Thank you. So I have, this can be, like a conversation between two friends that have just met. But like I said, I've known so much about you and your career and all the wonderful things you've done. So we're going to explore a little bit about your life, your career, your interests as a musician. To get started, I'll just make some quick introductions for those few people who might not know. Eduardo Vassallo is the principal cello of the city of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra. He has been in this position since 1989. Before then, in his native Buenos Aires, he worked with the National Symphony Orchestra, I believe also as principal cello. He also was a founding member of the String Quartet of the National Radio in Buenos Aires before he embarked on a trip to Europe to study in Switzerland with the Academy with Alberto Lysy, and has toured the world with many wonderful musicians like Yehudi Menuhin, incredible wealth of experience. So I'd like to ask you maybe to begin this interview by sharing with us some information about your training, your mentors, your path to Europe, and later on your arrival into the UK. I know it's a lot to have into one question, but this can be free flow.
Well, okay, good. Yes, it's a lot of years to compact there. Well, I grew up in Buenos Aires. I'm from Buenos Aires. I grew up in Buenos Aires, center of town, very near Teatro Colón, where my dad was a bass player in the opera orchestra in the Teatro.
Wow.
And of course, I come from a musical family that helps a lot because I started when I was 6. And I had really, really good teachers from start, and I think that probably is a secret, not to waste any time when you're young. And I was principal cellist when I was 16 years old, the National Orchestra there. For that, I did a quite short career there. And when I was 18, of course, you think, okay, I want to keep improving. Buenos Aires was great. I had a fantastic job there. I had money, I have everything. I said, but this is not everything for me. I need to keep pushing myself. And well, I had the possibility to go to Switzerland when Alberto Lysy was Argentinian as well. He had the International Menuhin Music Academy in Gstaad in Switzerland, and very linked to Yehudi Menuhin. Was a very small academy, it was only 16 students. And it was very small, very compact, very international, only 3 cellists. And I thought it's a great experience for me because we used to tour with Yehudi, we used to record with Yehudi, we used to play a lot of chamber music with him. And I have Pierre Fournier there as a teacher, have Radu Aldulescu as a teacher, I have, master classes with David Garingas. It was great. It was a fantastic, 18 years old in those days. I'm talking now 1980. It wasn't easy for us from South America to come to Europe because it was expensive and we didn't have scholarships. And for me, it was just a great way to come to Europe and not feel alone. And from there, everything took off. After 2 years in the academy, because I had my job in Argentina, I went back to Buenos Aires for 2 more years, 82 and 83. And I worked in the National Symphony Orchestra. I had fantastic memories. But I remember at the end of 1983 thinking, well, I am 22. Do I want to be here until I'm 65? And I think it was great. I think, thank you very much. And I gave up my job there. And I went back to Switzerland when I was a bit of assistant there. I worked 3 more years in the academy. And from there I moved to Cologne in Germany because I was following Boris Pergamenchikov, who was for me probably the most influential musician in my life. As a cello player, as a musician, as a personality. It's not very well known. He died many years ago. He died very young of cancer, but he was an incredibly bright and generous human being and fantastic musician. For me, it was a fantastic experience to finish studying with him. because I thought if I would have him when I was younger, I would know if I would be able to understand what he was trying to give me. And still now, when I talk to other colleagues and friends from those days, we studied with Boris, we can think it. Sometimes I'm practicing here at home and thinking, that's what he was trying to tell me. That's exactly what he was trying to. Now, after so many years, you know, everything stayed in my head, and he was so kind of advanced in many ways. He was always 3-4 steps ahead of everybody else. I was fantastic. And from there, from Cologne, when I was living in Cologne, I got a job here. It was in the city of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra, who was conducted by Simon Rattle those days. And I came when Simon was chief conductor here. I stayed with him for 10 years. The last 10 years of the orchestra was with Simon. It was a fantastic time for the orchestra. That's how we arrived to UK.
Wow. So what an amazing story. And I'll ask you some more later about this fantastic mentor, Boris, that you mentioned. But since you just mentioned Sir Simon, I'd like to jump right into that part of the conversation. You probably worked with him for many, many of the years in which he was principal conductor of the CBSO. You also worked with Andris Nelsons, Sakari Oramo, and now with Mirga.
Yeah.
So what are some of these most wonderful memories that you cherish from working with all these wonderful conductors and all the guests that have come in over the years?
Yeah. I mean, I was, to be fair, the orchestra was very lucky to have in the last, I've been in the orchestra for 31 years, and we had Simon for 10 years, Andris for 7 years, and now Sakari for 10 years, and now Mirga for 3 years. We're very lucky. I mean, it's unique for this. It's a unique experience, and also our orchestra is unique because we choose the conductor. The orchestra choose the conductor. Well, it takes sometimes a bit of longer than any other orchestras who had imposed a conductor or brought a conductor to them. The orchestra choose very democratically the conductors. And because it's the setup here in Birmingham is not a London orchestra who has a lot of coming and going. Here is always a good project. We always try to do good projects. And Simon he was here for 18 years. When he took the orchestra, he was very young, it was his first job. And he came with a fantastic project to make this orchestra, who was a provincial orchestra, to make it a really one of the top orchestras, at least in the UK anyway. And we always do very interesting programs, interesting recordings. And all those guys who were here as a conductor kept a really tight control of the orchestra in a way that they respect the orchestra, they look after the orchestra. And that, I think that's also so important. It's something the orchestras also should ask for the conductors, is to be looked after as well. You know, not just come 2-3 days, cash in, go, and leave the orchestra with who knows whom. Simon was incredibly careful when he wasn't here, who was coming, and looking after. Andris the same, Mirga the same, Sakari the same. So that we're very, very lucky because the orchestra kept growing, and the orchestra is actually much better now than he was in 1989 when I came. The orchestra keep improving. Incredible. The level now is fantastic. It's a real pleasure. And when I came to the orchestra, I was one of the youngest. Now I'm one of the oldest. But the young guys now are unbelievable nice and amazing players. The atmosphere in the orchestra is terrific. The youngsters are up for that. For me, it's very nice to know that we leave the orchestra in really good shape, and the youngsters are going to take the orchestra completely different level as well, and the orchestra will keep going up. And that's just such a nice feeling for everybody in my generation in the orchestra.
How wonderful. And musically speaking, I mean, Sir Simon, like you said, when he took it, he was very young himself. It was his first principal conductorship, but he brought incredible projects. I mean, I've seen many of those documentaries he would do with Luciano Berio's Sinfonia or whatever piece it might be, that he would come and say, okay, this was never done here, but I'm gonna bring it in and do it, you know, full on. So what are some of these memories you have from all of them? Because all of these wonderful music directors you've had have been fantastic at so many different things. So musically speaking, if you had to, you know, handpick, okay, these are the 4 or 5 experiences that first come to mind that really blew me away when I was a part of this, what would you, I mean, it's hard to choose, I'm sure, just a few. But...
To choose one thing, but I mean, Simon was so clever and inspirational in the way he also programmed music. You know, in one program he would put probably the most outrageous contemporary avant-garde piece together with something quite traditional. And the public from Birmingham learned to trust that. And they will come to Simon's concert because even if they didn't like the piece or they would find it strange, they knew that was good. And Simon, what I found also remarkable is that he took care of every piece like would be the best piece of music ever played or ever written. He was so much respect for whatever he conducted, you know, and he never would make a funny comment about a piece. But sometimes I get cross with conductors, say, oh, I don't like this piece. You know, why are you doing it? And then, don't do it. I hate it. If you feel like piece is not good and it was imposed to you, don't tell me. I don't want to know. Yeah. You know, don't tell the orchestra about it. I think it's and Simon was always thinking, even if it was sometimes wasn't great, but he said, oh, this is amazing, guys. This is fantastic. And he always make 100% of what he had in front. And his attitude is, and he's the same now, is very, very kind of driven about work and perfectionist details. With Simon was incredible details.
Wow, that is also wonderful to hear. It's just that incredible conviction. So has he been back to the CBSO?
Yeah, he has been back. The good thing with Simon is that we have a very good relationship. And for him, is coming home with us. Yeah, he has been back. He's coming next, I think it's March or something like that, because the orchestra is celebrating 100 years. And in this year, in the next couple of years, we'll have all the music directors who are alive, you know, Simon, Andris, Sakari, they all will come to celebrate the 100 years of the orchestra.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. So now we're going to fly back in time and ask you again about your time, as you were, I think you said you were 16 when you were principal cello of the National Symphony in Argentina. So do you have any memories of back then? Who were your colleagues? Who was your principal conductor?
And a lot of friends still from that day, those days. I mean, it was a funny situation because although I came to the orchestra as a number six cellist, immediately, a few months later, I moved to number 4, and 6 months later, the principal position came up, and I went for it, and I got it. The funny thing enough was my teacher was sitting number 8, and I have to learn very quickly how to deal with those things, you know, because also I was a kid. I was very lucky because I had really good colleagues who helped me out a lot. Because you cannot have a job like that without a section of people beside you who help you. It's impossible. Otherwise, you finish with the ulcer or with the stomach, you know, problems. You know, because your job is hard enough to be there, new repertoire every time. Every solo I have to play those days. The first time I play it. Now I find it very difficult to find a solo I haven't played. But those days every solo was new. For that now I've got the tricks, which fingering works, which finger doesn't work, which point is better, which point feels more comfortable, which one I can use, I feel great. If I feel a bit nervous, which one I could swap to it, you know. But those days, everything was new. But I had a great support, and I have great friends, and I have a fantastic memory. And I love playing in orchestra. I always love playing in orchestra. I love the repertoire. I think the orchestral repertoire is absolutely fantastic. I love it. And also, I love it what's going on afterwards, you know, after the concert, in the change rooms, before the concert, the rehearsals. What do you think the conductors never hear about us? You know, because true, a conductor finishes, goes to his change room and talk to the promoters, but we talk to our colleagues. And we make fun, we laugh, we make jokes, you know, about the good things, about the bad things, about everything. We laugh about everything lately afterwards. And it's such a great, great, great moment. I love playing an orchestra. I love the amount of people you can talk to. You're not always talking to the same people. There are so many. Also, you have young, old, women. You know, doesn't matter the sex, doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter the nationality. We're all in the same situation. And even if you're working with people that you don't like, because sometimes happens, you know, people, they're colleagues, but not your best friends. Those 2 hours that the concert lasts, everybody is pulling in the same direction. And that's something unique about our profession, I think. Because you don't need to talk about it, but you know, just looking, that everybody is pulling in the same direction. Afterwards, the concert finished. I might go to the right, you go to the left, I go to the pub, somebody go to have a coffee, doesn't matter. But in that moment, is unique. What's going on in that stage?
Yeah.
Sometimes difficult to explain to people who are not musicians. You know, they say, no, but in that moment, without saying a word, everybody is in one thing. And I think something unique about our profession.
It's almost as if the individualities were suspended and nobody's thinking in a selfish way. Everybody really wants that concert to be wonderful and unique.
Yeah, and I think everybody always give the best.
Wonderful.
You know, yeah, it's quite interesting. It's quite nice about our profession.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, you mentioned some wonderful figures that have been really inspirational to you. You mentioned your wonderful teacher, Boris. I'd like you to mention a few more comments about him. You also mentioned Alberto Lysy, Pierre Fournier. Did you ever work with Rostropovich?
No, I never worked with Rostropovich. No, I never had a lesson with him and never worked with him. No, no. I was lucky.
CBSO while you were there?
No, but no, he wasn't. No, he never came to the CBSO. Once, what I did, it was funny because he was going to play the Schubert Quintet with Menuhin, Alberto Lysy, Bianchi in the viola, and who was second cello? Was Aldulescu second cello, and Rostropovich first cello. Anyway, Rostropovich couldn't come until the day of the concert, and I did all the rehearsals. And after when he came to the general rehearsal, I was sitting near him and I would have a nice chat. I met him other times in cello festival and things like that, but never actually worked with him. Pergamenchikov came from St. Petersburg, and Rostropovich was the line from Moscow. And it was two different lines, but it was a great musician and great. What he did for the cello world is incredible. You know, fantastic. And Boris was unique because his brain was incredible. Until he was 18 years old, he wasn't sure if he was going to be a pianist, composer, or cellist. Okay, the lessons were never with the cello. He always sat with the piano, and he could play the whole cello repertoire on the piano. Wow. He could play the back suite on the piano, and he will play any preludes or anything for the suite, and he will say, could go this way and put one harmony, or could go that way, different harmony, or could go this or there, and say who's right, who's wrong, who knows, he will tell you. His main thing was saying that for him, the teacher should be, I mean, of course he had in those days a great, very, very good class that actually everybody could play the cello quite well, but he was very, very simple in his approach about technique, very simple, but fantastic technique. But he used to say the teacher's job is to open windows. To show all the different windows, and afterwards you're on your own. Which one you want to open is up to you. But his job was to show you all the different possibilities, and I think that's amazing.
That's a wonderful metaphor.
Yeah, because afterwards, it's a question of taste, question of how you feel. Some people open one, some people open the other one. But as a teacher, I teach now, and I try to, in my modest way, try to help my students in the same way. Showing possibility, showing, okay, who's right, who's wrong, who knows? Who could say who's right, who's wrong? We all change, we all play different than we used to play 10 years ago. I'm sure when you conduct a piece 3-4 years later, you open up like a new canvas, and okay, a lot of things you still will do the same because the conviction is still there in one way or the other, but a lot of things will change. Or, and I think that's a nice thing about our profession, that we never become methodic, automatic, it just always be fresh and also playing with different people, the orchestras, you work with orchestras as well. The orchestra's never the same. You never have the same amount of people. Sometimes people are ill and then you have different people. The sound's already different. Depends who's sitting where, the sound's different. Who's playing the solo, and one thing about quite nice about I want to mention is about Andris Nelsons, who's actually one of the best musicians I met playing for him. Andris, it was amazing. But what strike me about is that he could, every concert with him, it would be different. He will never, but he will allow the orchestra, he will allow any solo to play a little solo, he will pick it up. And if he likes it, he will take it from there and improvise on that. he never imposed his way, you know, and he was telling to a very good student of mine who now is a very good conductor, and he gave once a lesson to him and say, when you go, you know, Alpesh, when you go in front of the orchestra, never try to impose your way the first day. Just conduct it and listen, because there you have people who know the piece 10 times better than you know it, and take it from there and be quick to react. I think that's one of Andris' greatest gift. He's so quick to react, and he allows you to play, and he take it, and he take what you gave. Somebody play beautiful over solo, he will take it, and everybody goes with that, you know, to different, and instead of, you know, this is what I want to do, it's completely different and free, and every concert is different, and it's fantastic.
Wow, how wonderful.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your role as a teacher. I mean, in addition to having, I imagine, many private students, you also teach at is it at the Royal Northern in Manchester?
Royal Northern College of Music, Manchester, and Royal Birmingham Conservatoire now in Birmingham. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Both places. I don't teach privately now. I mean, it's just I haven't got the time.
Right.
But I got those. I do sometimes occasionally, but I haven't got any private students such. But yeah, I go to place. I've been teaching in Manchester for 31 years now, and in Birmingham for the last 5 years.
Fantastic. So they're lucky that in addition to your very active role leading the CBSO cello section, you can pass it on to the next generations there. So
I think it's our job. We have to do that. We have to do that. We have to pass whatever we have, whatever we learn. It's nice to pass it. You cannot write it down. You cannot read it. You have to pass it one to one.
So what do you attempt to do? I imagine in both places, in Birmingham and in Manchester, you must see students who are at different levels, at different moments of their careers and training. So how do you try to provide and cater for these different circumstances? Well,
I always try to. My idea, I mean, I don't always succeed. My idea is try to be as positive as possible, as fair. I'm quite tough. Okay, my teachers, I'm quite tough, but always with the best intention and never abusive, tough, realistic, but positive. I'm very positive, and if you see the students working, brilliant. I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to go to the next level. I try to keep it as simple as possible. I try to go straight to the point to try to help them out. Just basic things, you know, good technique, good sound, good intonation, good vibrato. And afterwards, if they got that, okay, we work and build something else on top of that. But sometimes it's very easy to go and talk about music, but the student cannot play an open string, you know, and it's completely tense, you know. It's very nice. You can do that in masterclass. In masterclass, you can do that because you talk about everything. Well, if you have to do in a masterclass situation, what I normally do, I split the slot I got for a student, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and I talk about music for a while, and at the end I said, listen, this, you have to sort it out. Do this, do that, you know, because I think it's important for students to go to the masterclass, to go to play for people that are not used to it, to get something out of it, very clear about it. You know, exactly, okay, because if somebody, spot the problem that I wasn't aware, and it's good to know why. I'm going to go home and see what really, why he mentioned that, why he mentioned my intonation, why he mentioned my shifting, you know, why, and then you have to look, and then if the student is smart, he will work it out. You know, if it's not, fine, you know. What can you do? You cannot do everything. You have to give some information. If they don't want to give it, take it, or they don't know how to develop a problem as well.
To paraphrase your metaphor about the windows, you can show them the windows, but you cannot force anybody through the window.
You cannot do, absolutely, you can throw them out the window. No, but you're absolutely right. You cannot do it.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, so I'd like to ask you, you've also been very close to certain composers, and I'd like to ask you about your relationship working with living composers. What are some of your, recollections from these experiences, and since you mentioned right before we started the interview, you mentioned this wonderful, wonderful poster you have behind you. Can you share with us what that is?
Those are the manuscript of the 4/4 tango. It's a piece by Piazzolla, Astor Piazzolla. He wrote for the Kronos Quartet, and that's the original.
That is the original manuscript.
Yeah. Because I was lucky enough to be quite close to Piazzolla, because my dad played in the Octeto Buenos Aires.
Wow.
Who was the first group of Piazzolla when he broke out of the traditional tango in the 50s. And my dad was a member, and I would have a very good relation with Piazzolla. And when we did the Grand Tango, I played. He came and hearing me playing the Grand Tango many times, and he gave me that, and I'm very proud of it. But no, I have a lot. Also when I was in Argentina or here, I work a lot to try to always play new music. I think it's important for you guys, conductors, orchestras, to bring new music to audiences. Otherwise, the repertoire shrinks.
Absolutely.
And it's so important. And playing new music takes a lot of risk, a lot of guts, because when you have a score, I personally have a terrible problem with the score. When I get the score, I cannot imagine how that piece will sound. A lot of people could. A lot of people get the score and have the sound in their head. I don't. Until I start playing it or practicing, I cannot work it out. It's a fault or something I never could do it. I still cannot do it now. I will not be able to do it at my age. But for that, sometimes you program a piece because you think it looks good, and then as you start practicing, you have to go for it and try to get the best out of it. But sometimes it's great, sometimes not great, but it's important to do it. It's important for your own creation, because I was talking to a student yesterday, first year student in Birmingham, and he never done anything avant-garde or contemporary. I said, you would like to do a piece? Yeah, I would like to do Shostakovich sonata. I said, that's not avant-garde. Shostakovich sonata. I said, okay, I'm going to find a nice piece and I send it to you. And I'm going to say, I already found it today, a kind of crazy piece by Iglesias Rossi, who's an Argentinian composer who does really nice things. And it's a piece quite experimental from the 80s, but full of, sounds, harmonics, no real notation, and it would throw in completely. But for the whole day, I said, you will be your homework. Work it out. Read every sign. Just think what you could do. Create something. That's the good thing about it. Sometimes we're going to learn a new sonata by Beethoven, and then you already heard this 100 times. But this, you just got this canvas and say, okay, what shall I do with this? And it's fascinating what you can create, because nobody knows how it should sound. If it doesn't work, you can talk to the composer and say, listen, this doesn't work. I can swap this one around because it will sound better. And of course, normally the composer say, it's no problem. You can do whatever you want. Because if it doesn't work. A lot of the time, those things don't work. And then they need you as well. They need the feedback. And I work with a lot of composers like that. Alejandro Civillotti, some of you probably know as well, who I think is a marvelous. I think it's fantastic composer. Tough. His music is tough, but powerful, really powerful. And I really believe of his music. I really believe it. I think he's one of the best. And he wrote a lovely cello concerto.
Yeah, which I very much look forward to doing together with you. Hopefully, once knock on wood, once all of this pandemic is over.
Yeah, it will be over. Yeah. We will do it. You'll be amazed. And for the youngsters, it's fantastic because it's difficult. They got amazing clarinet solo, amazing viola solo, cello solo, and it's very well written. And when you put in context when was created, why it was created, the thing we need to have always with the contemporary music, with avant-garde music, a background, what the music means. It's like going to the modern museum, modern art museum. You see all these plots there, and if somebody doesn't tell you what it is, you go and see the Guernica by Picasso. Yeah, you could say interesting, but if somebody doesn't tell you what it's all about, who Picasso was, why he wrote it, and then everything makes sense. Everything fits into pieces. And then wow, that's powerful. I was thinking, strange, really strange. They look really weird, but what it's all about, why, what was happening in his life, what happened in the world those days. Everything just, fits into place. And I think it's so important that.
So
for us.
keeping the context about why something was done in a certain way always definitely
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's important. It's really important, and I think it's important for the audiences as well. You know, for the audience to listen to and to. We do quite a lot of in the CBSO pre-concert talks to the public, and the public love that. You know, it's normally I think it's 45 minutes, an hour before the concert, half an hour. Somebody, 2-3 members of the orchestra give explanation and go on stage. They come a bit earlier. And after they go like half an hour before the concert, and just playing a new piece. Sometimes could be one trombone, one violin, one, you know, and of course you have to prepare very well. But they love it. The public love that, and they so much prepare to listen to the piece afterwards. And I think that's the way to get into new audiences and to any audience, you know, to teach them what it's all about.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if we don't take risk, who's going to take them, you know, and unfortunately at this stage, we've reached a point that actually, if you don't put Tchaikovsky or Beethoven in the program, people don't go to concerts. I think that's terrible. That's absolutely terrible. It's our fault because we shouldn't do it.
And I think this is really related to what you mentioned, and somebody like Sir Simon and the kind of trust that he developed with the audience in Birmingham. You know, they were not used to this kind of programming before him, but his personality, his conviction, and his skillfulness, and the way in which he developed each program to be done in such an organic manner. Yes, there can be the shock wave of this bucket of cold water, of this really, really out there piece. And you might get your Brahms, you might get your Tchaikovsky, but come and listen to this as well.
Suffer. You know, Simon did an amazing project with us. It was 10 years long. It was called Towards the Millennium, okay? Because I'm talking about the 90s. And the project started in 1990.
Wow.
And what he did, 1990 to 1991, the project lasted 2.5 months, okay? And we did pieces written in that decade, okay? 1900 to 1910. We did in 1991. 1992, we did 1910 to 1920.
Wow.
And when the millennium reached, they were all pieces written especially for that project.
Wow.
And the project was done Birmingham, in 4 cities: Birmingham, Cardiff, London, and Vienna. We did that for 10 years.
Wow.
And they would do the 3-4 concerts in Birmingham, and it would take 1 concert in Birmingham, take it to London, Cardiff, like that, in triangle for 2.5 months. And after we go, I spent a week in Vienna with 3-4 concerts there with this most incredible music. And those days, the Viennese public wasn't actually used to hear contemporary music. The whole program, it wasn't just hardcore. It was hardcore. But that's how we made our name in Vienna, because the concerts were full. We did, you know, Messiaen, Turangalila. We did massive pieces, Tippett symphonies, you know, Schoenberg, all to do with the decade that those pieces were written.
How fantastic.
That one we did Mark Anthony Turnage, pieces written for us, 3 popes, 3 screaming popes. All the pieces were written for that project. We brought a lot of composers to write for us, and the project it lasted 10 years. And it was such a great project. You see, that's Simon thinking. I wouldn't have that brain to think something like that. Simon did. He had that kind of brain. Absolutely. That actually is very, very, very remarkable in a way.
Yeah. So we are approaching the end of our scheduled time here for the interview. So I guess my last question will be regarding your advice for young musicians, regarding somebody who is either starting off as a musician, as a cellist, or somebody who is thinking, am I good enough for this? Shall I give it a go? What would be your advice for a young, promising, up-and-coming musician?
Well, I think most people go through that period of life, say, I'm not good enough, I'm going to make it. And my advice is, I can never write anybody off. And I never do it as a teacher, I never, because that could haunt you all your life. What I tell my students say, if you cannot know if you're good enough or not unless you give it the best shot. You know, go 100%. Go 100%. And also depends what you want to do. You know, make music or be a musician doesn't mean you have to play in Berlin Philharmonic or New York Philharmonic. You know, there are other orchestras. There's, you know, and there are people actually, you can be happy playing any type of music or any different level. But when you're a student, give it your best shot. And after you see where you are. And don't forget that always when people play faster than you and more notes than you, but what you do with them is a problem. That will make it special, you know, because sometimes you have to play 2 notes and that what you could make a difference, how you play them. 2 notes. And you know, as a conductor as well, and you have a principal cellist in an orchestra, suddenly a little solo comes up, 3 notes. If those 3 notes are really beautifully played, it will just turn around and say, wow. You know, that's have to be difficult. It's the way you do it, how you bring them up. Be special, bring something special. I always say to my students, we cannot compete with Rostropovich. We cannot compete, okay? But in the slow things, in the sound, the vibrato, we might be able to. 3 notes, it might sound like him. Why not? The fast thing, he will play faster and more accurate than me, and we all together. But sometimes we could match that sound. We can match that vibrato. We could try at least, you know. And why not? And you never know where you're going to take you. But give your best shot and work hard. Work hard, because especially these days the level is very high. Competition is very high, and you have to work. Work and work, and never ends. It never ends. You reach a point, you think you made it, you didn't. You always stays one on top, unfortunately. But that what makes his life so beautiful.
That is wonderful advice, Eduardo, and you've been so generous with your time and all what you've shared. So thank you very, very much, and I look forward to meeting you in person and making some music together, hopefully next year.
Me too. Looking forward to see all of you guys there and make music with you.
So much.